What is going on, Comic Fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am welcoming to the show J.M. Brandt. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, you are. You're curating a new anthology that's launching here soon, called Horror Not Hate. I want to dig into all that stuff real quick, but before we do, I always like to start with my guest. How did you get into comics? Did you always have a love for comics growing up as a kid, or was this something kind of newer in life for you?
No, always an interest in comics. I was maybe 2 or 3 when the Secret Wars action figures came out, and Toys R Us was like full of them, and I had a ton of them. So like even from like before I could read, I was into Marvel. And then there was a video rental store near us that had the old 1960s Marvel cartoons on VHS, and I literally wore out all the tapes, the Fantastic Four, the Thor, the Hulk, the Iron Man, Captain America. So, yeah, I have always been into it. The first money I ever spent from my own allowance was on comics over at Golden Apple. They used to have a location near me. So, yeah, li lifelong.
It's so funny in the midst of that introduction. You've nostalgia just baited me with Toys R Us and video rental stores. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, oh my goodness, people
Well,
don't know that these days growing up, and I feel for you. Like someone
yeah.
that didn't get to experience walking into a toy store like Toys R Us and going, oh, wow,
It was magical, right? Like
yes.
I'm an elder millennial. I'm like as old as millennials get. And yeah, that was just like for me as a kid, I didn't even have to get anything. Just
Just
sending me into the store was amazing. And I don't know about the ones near you, but they used to keep their video games behind like you would pull a slip out, like they just have a
hmm
wall of like game
Yep,
art,
just like
and
cards.
then you'd have to go to the little cubicle inside of Toys R Us to get it. So yeah,
It was
a
a
lot of
it
memories.
was a great time. It was a great experience. So, you get into, the love of comics, buying comics, spending your money. Where was it for you to then start to think like this is something that you would want to pursue, a career in comics?
Right. Well, it's funny because from a very early age, I wanted to be a writer. Um, Maybe like around 8 or 9, I sort of got that bug. And it's kind of funny because the first stuff I was writing was comic based. Like I was a big fan of the Marvel Handbook of the Marvel Universe,
Mhm.
Official Handbook of the Marvel Universe. Yeah. So I would read those religiously, and then I would try and come up with my own superheroes and villains and create sheets that had like all their stats and their backstory. And so my first experience writing comic stuff was writing backstories for these fictional, made up superheroes. And then, even with my creative writing assignments, I was big into the What If comics
Mm.
in elementary school, and so I was making my own What If comics, and it was crazy. But as time went on, I sort of forgot that I could write comics if I wanted to be a writer, and it wasn't until my like 30s that I was like, okay, I should be writing comics. I don't know why this felt like some sort of walled garden for
Mm.
me. I can actually do it. So it actually it was a combination of things, but essentially it came down to the birth of my son 10 years ago and wanting to have stuff that I can point to and be like, this is my legacy outside of my kid, and here, kid, be proud of your dad. That I started writing comics.
That's that's so cool. So, leading up to this anthology, if people aren't familiar with your, kind of where was your comic journey from, deciding to start to where we got to with this anthology?
Right. Well, and not to get all woe is me on you, but my comic journey has kind of been pretty shitty, honestly, so far. So, my first book was Swamp Dogs, which is a mini series. Uh, out from Scout Comics' very, very short-lived horror imprint called Black Caravan.
Mhm.
So that was supposed to be like Black Caravan's flagship title, and they were gung-ho about it, and that imprint folded within 6 months. And in those 6 months, there was COVID and the paper shortage and them forgetting to submit a book 1 month for previews. So an extra gap in one of the issues. And then our artist kind of just had a breakdown during COVID and bailed. So it's a mini series that still hasn't been finished.
Mhm.
But the rights did just revert back to us, so we are going to be finishing it in the very near future.
Okay.
So that's cool. After that, I had a few projects that I got paid for and I wrote and never got published for various reasons. And I was in the Aftershock pitch group, and then Aftershock went belly up. So it's been pretty sparse. My second book that actually hit shelves was called Swallower of Shades. It was a one-shot splatter western horror story for Dead Sky Publishing, who's very new to comics,
Mm.
but they've been doing novels forever, and I'm really proud of that one. And then my third published piece is in Holiday Spirits Volume 3 from Orange Cone Productions, which
Mm.
is Travis Gibb and Jerome Gagnon.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think I pronounced that
I
correctly.
think I think so too. I glanced back at my shelf because I know I have that somewhere here. So, but yes,
Yeah, I have a nice little fun story in that one that I'm extremely proud of.
yeah.
That was me getting out my love for the Goon and Eric Powell's sense of humor. So
Yes. Well, it sounds though like your comic journey though to lead you to an anthology kind of, it sets you up for listen, the publisher kind of went under, publisher kind of went under. You're like, let's create something on my own now then.
yeah,
Like there's
no,
avenues
absolutely.
out there. You mentioned Travis. Travis is ton with Orange Cone has done tons of Kickstarter stuff out there that like they're like, okay, what is I'm assuming then your path is like, I want to create something. I'm just going to do it on my own then. Is that
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's very safe to say. I mean, the impulse is still there for me to like get with a publisher for
yeah.
certain works, but now it's a little bit more equitable between the two, and it's sort of based on the project itself. It's like I have a couple books that I'm pitching out there to different publishers. Ones that make more sense with a traditional publisher, and then there's stuff that I'm going to be doing on my own. I created Slow Feet Comics for Horror Not Hate, but also with the intention of doing some of my own personal projects in there, and maybe even picking up some other people along the way if there's a book that I really believe in.
Yeah. So we've talked about it. We've mentioned it. Horror Not Hate, a new anthology
Yeah,
launching here soon on Kickstarter. Tell me all about it. What is it?
sure.
What's the concept? Why'd you come up with this? And what can people expect?
Yeah, okay. All right. So, Horror Not Hate is a direct response to the political and social climate of the country right now. I don't like who's in office. I don't even know if it's a legitimate claim to the office, to be quite honest. Um, and everything that's been done by this administration, with very, very few exceptions, has been totally antithetical to what I believe in, and what I believe in as a patriotic American. A lot of it comes from my love of the country, honestly. And just believing that America, or the America that I was brought up learning about and thinking about, um, movies, TV shows, teachers, rabbis, like everything,
Mhm.
right? Is that the country is a melting pot, that the strength of the country is that we aren't beholden to some sort of pure bloodline or anything, or some sort of like cultural heritage, that we're a relatively new country that's developing our own cultural
Mhm.
heritage, that we're developing our own ethos, and we're backed by the Constitution, which talks about uh, the right for, what is it, peace, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness,
Yeah.
that all men are created equal, and men obviously is a stand-in, right?
Right.
But that we deserve freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, and all of that's under threat. And it's come by sort of like kicking the most vulnerable people
Mm.
right now. Families are being broken up. People are being kidnapped off the street. Legitimate American citizens. Like, I think I just read something 2 days ago where the DOJ or the DHS admitted that 2.5% of the people that they've arrested in the ICE raids in Chicago have criminal records. 2.5%. So basically they're admitting, that that's not what we're after, right? It's like
Right.
anybody whose skin tone is wrong, whose
Mm.
last name is wrong, who, may or may not have come over legitimately, but it's insane. It's fascism. And so seeing all that stuff happening before me, I just needed to do something to make myself feel productive and standing up for my rights in a public way. And this book came out of that. Basically, I didn't want to keep protesting. I'm not a protester by nature.
Yeah.
But I am somebody that wants to be vocal and helpful. And so my wife basically told me to stop grumbling about the news every morning and do something about it. I believe her exact words were get off your ass and do something. And so it just occurred to me that, I'm a comic writer. I do have a mind for publishing. Like you said, my journey has sort of brought me there, right?
Mhm.
So it's something that I'd been kicking around for a while. And I figured, why not leverage my abilities into making something big that people would want to buy in order to get them to donate more money to immigrant rights and LGBTQIA rights. So that's what we're doing is it's an anthology and it's an art book and it's raising money for those two communities.
That's so that's so cool. Well, a lot of times life seems to dictate art, right? Of what inspires art, and you're motivated to, get out there and do something. Um, what was the process for you of bringing around this team? Because this is like a who's who of comic creators that are a part of this anthology. So, like, what was the process for you of kind of like figuring out like how this was going to come to fruition, right?
Right. That's a good question. I mean, it began with my personal contacts, right? It started with the people that I've come to know over the years, that I've bonded with, that I have been mutuals with on different social medias for years. None of this would have been possible without social media. I mean, it would have been possible, but it would have been really dragged out.
Would have been
And
harder,
as
a lot
as it
harder
is
than it needed to be.
yeah, exactly, exactly. When you're canvassing people and you're asking for a donation of their time, energy, and effort, right? These are things that people are doing for themselves, right? If you're an independent creator, you're trying to get your own stories out there. You have projects that you believe in. You're probably booked in your head for years and years and years on your personal projects, and I'm asking them to do something for free and where they're just like they're not going to make anything, it's just going to um charity, which a lot of people want to do, but still it means that I'm not necessarily, or this book's not necessarily the highest priority for certain people. And obviously, if you're a creator full time and you don't have a day job, you're relying on your freelance work and trying to find stuff. So giving away any of that for free is tough. So without social media, I wouldn't have been able to sort of blanket everybody with like the proposition. So I started with my mutuals and people that I was close with. A lot of people couldn't commit to it. They're like, I believe in it. I'll
Hmm.
signal boost, but I don't have the time or I don't have the bandwidth, right? A lot
Hmm.
of us are struggling mentally right now with everything. So, um, Yeah, it came down to just like hundreds of people, like, and then after mutuals, it was who do I follow? And let me try and pull some big names. And, when the big names weren't getting back, which is understandable because, they either don't follow me or don't check their DMs, it came to an open call at a certain point. I sort of shifted my priorities. I
Mhm.
wanted to make sure to get um, some newcomers in, or some people that haven't really done comics but are writers or are in the comic space, and sort of give people a chance that way too. So it's a really good mix of bigger names and medium names and newcomers, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah. What is, if someone's picking up this anthology, obviously they hear your kind of reason of what motivated you to do this. What are people going to be able to expect from some of these stories, and anticipate that they get to experience reading this?
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good question too. So, I love anything horror, and so I would have been happy for it to be all over the place, but I realized if I'm releasing a book that's sort of trying to deliver a message, then the theme of the story should be a message also. So all of the horror is based around hate, fascism, transphobia, homophobia, xenophobia, racism, or toxic patriotism. And that was sort of the prompt for the writers. And the directions that they took it in are all over the place. I gave you a little preview of,
Yeah.
a few of the stories, and like they couldn't be more different, right?
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, uh, uh, Visually, storytelling wise, thematically, you're getting all different kinds of stuff, but it's all with sort of a social conscience, sorry, in mind. And, you're going to have some lighthearted stuff. Holly Interlandi, who's, done some books here and there and done heavy metal before and all that good stuff. She had a story called Making a Difference, which is like sort of a really lighthearted romp through the fact that we all live in misery, and just little things like stay in your lane, do what you can, and anything that you do towards making the world a better place is making it a better place. It's a little violent, but that's all right. Um, so there's that. There's really heavy stuff like Rich Douek's story, who I think I sent you a
Yes, you
preview of
did.
that
Yep.
one,
That was the all
which
black
is,
and white one, I think, right?
yeah, that's
Yep.
Caleb Beatty on art. That was a wish list artist for Rich, and so I connected the two, and I think it came out
It
beautifully.
did.
But it's like a really intense story. It's Nazis and Jews in a concentration camp, and there's a supernatural element to it, but you're gonna get some weighty stuff. You're gonna get some stuff that is personal, based off of true stories or based off of personal experiences. My own story, which is fully penciled now, but it's in the process of getting inked, so I didn't send it along. Mine is another concentration camp story. So there are two, but whereas Rich's takes place during World War II, and it's like, the Nazis shooting Jewish people. Mine is a tour group goes to a concentration camp,
Mhm.
in modern day, and it's about people that don't respect the past. And it's
Mm.
about people that stand for ideals that should be dead and buried, along with the, you know, millions of people that were killed during that period
Mhm.
of time. And it's all set to a poem, which I thought was like a really cool thing. Basically, whenever I write, I want to challenge myself in one way or another. And so with this one, I wanted to do a dialogueless comic and set it to a poem that was written inside of a concentration camp. And
Mhm.
so it's a modern day story where all the words are just this poem from the concentration camp. And it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, that sounds. I love that, and I love what. That's one of the things I love about anthologies
Hmm.
is also is because they're 3, 4, 5 pages long. It allows you as creators to maybe step outside your box, and maybe a poem based off of, a comic based off a poem can't last for 32 pages. Maybe it could, but like for 3 pages, like, or whatever it is, that probably is a sweet spot to try something creatively and unique. And I think that's the beautiful thing about anthologies, but this art form as well.
Right. No, absolutely. This art form's pretty limitless, right?
Right.
I mean, especially if you get really experimental with it. Like, I don't think there is any limit to it. As long as, it could still technically loosely be defined as a comic. I almost wish that you were stronger with your you can't turn a 32 page comic based off of a poem because I was like, oh, is he going to challenge me? Like, I want to take that up.
Well,
So
no, sorry, you can't do that.
challenge accepted. No, but it's true. Like with an anthology, like you can really play with it.
Yeah.
With holiday spirits, I wanted to do something that was like a messed up fairy tale, and I wanted to make it funny and lighthearted, and I wanted something sweet but super twisted, and that gives you the space. Having small page counts is liberating in certain ways, and
Mhm.
it's really confining in others, right? Because we're used to being overblown. Us as writers, unless you're Ernest Hemingway, we're all overblown. We're windbags, right? If I send an email to somebody, it's a fucking novel. I can't shut up. And so economy of language, um, really picking out the juicy parts and making it work. That's always a really fun puzzle to solve. And yeah, you see a lot of different writers in this book and a lot of different artists experimenting with different things. And it also allowed people that haven't been in the comic space to jump in also. We have Tim Wagner, who's really made a name for himself in novelizations of horror movies. Like he won an award for Terrifier 2, but he's written something like 20 or 30 different adaptations of horror movies now. But he also has won a Bram Stoker Award and a Shirley Jackson Award. So he's like fully enmeshed in horror fiction prose,
Yeah.
right? And this is his second ever comic story in here. So it's really cool to have him there. Riley Silverman, who's a comedian and a podcaster. This is her first comic ever, and it's sort of it's supernatural, right? It's a werewolf story that's sort of based on her experience as having come out of tr as trans. And
Mhm.
so it's really cool to give people sort of a gateway or a place to play that, isn't so dependent on how many issues can this like one story sell and
Mhm.
what have you. And that's the strength of an anthology, I think, too, is
Yeah.
you don't have to do everything with the market in mind.
Yeah. So you mentioned you had a love for horror. Like, we were talking backstage, and you were even mentioning your Instagram page is full of horror gore and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what you gravitate towards. So I guess my question for you is why why did this matchup feel like the perfect fit between horror and then like, trans rights, LGBTQ plus, you know, the whole ice like all this stuff. Why did it feel like this was a perfect mashup for this anthology for you?
Right. Well, the horror community is probably the one that I feel closest to.
Mm,
It's where I sort of feel the most love, and where I give the most love too. When I do conventions and stuff, I'm not typically doing comic conventions. I'm doing horror cons. And there is a big overlap between the two, and one of the defining traits of the two is that they're extremely welcoming. For every one person that's like the Simpsons comic book guy, right? You have 1,000 people that are super inclusive, that are willing to accept people who look different and behave different and have different, neurodivergent,
mhm.
abilities and disabilities and um, different genders. It's just kind of like come as you are, right?
Right.
And both communities have been super welcoming, and that's something that I think comes through in a lot of the movies too. And so it felt like a natural fit because it's a community of misfits, whether it's intentional or not. We have been sort of cast aside, and yeah, like the Marvel movies are making a big splash and horror's back in a big way and blah blah blah. It's mainstream,
Mhm.
but it's always had sort of a outsider tinge to it. And so it just felt like the right fit. And then most of my contacts are people in the horror space, especially for the art book portion of the anthology. Going to different horror cons, buying horror art. I've made connections with several of these people that are sort of in a different space than the traditional comic space.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I love that kind of illustration of, it's mainstream, but it still isn't, right? And I was having a talk with some students and, they're like, found out I like comic books. And like, even though like they know all the Marvel movies, they're like, oh, you read comics? So like, it's still like, it
Mhm.
doesn't translate just because,
No, yeah, it's not one to one for sure. And
yeah,
and it's like if you like anything that's outside of Superman and Spider-Man and the Avengers, you're still something of a pariah. Like even somebody that knows the MCU inside and out is going to sort of crinkle their nose if you bring up Hellboy or
right.
Vertigo or like any of these indies that are out there. I really like underground comics and super like I'm noticing your copy of Final Cut in the
Mm,
shelf
yeah.
because it's gigantic and you can't miss it. The Charles Burns stuff is amazing to me. So and that's stuff that doesn't get carried over with this sort of mainstream
Mhm.
tide. And so yeah, we're still outsiders in a lot of ways.
Yep. So w- I want to respect your time, but what is what can people expect from this campaign? Are that have you guys do you guys have different tiers for this Kickstarter and is there some stuff that you can share about the whole Kickstarter project
Yeah,
itself?
no, absolutely. Uh, Basically, like everything is still in the planning phase, but essentially what it's going to come down to is for backer rewards, we're going to have three different regular variant covers. So we've only released one of them so far, which is a Chad J. Keith cover. Uh, like this weekend, or I guess the weekend before the episode comes out, I should be dropping the second cover, which is our Skinner variant. Skinner has done a lot of variant covers, Creep Show and heavy metal and all that stuff, but he's also just a very accomplished artist. He's done metal album artwork, Mastodon and High on Fire. He did album covers for both of them. And a lot of the artists I've pulled from the metal world too. So especially for the art book portion. And so we're going to be releasing that. There's a third cover by another metal artist, Jonathan Lamantia, who's like sort of horror and metal sort of world for both of those. And so we're gonna have the different covers. There is a surprise fourth cover that will be like a stretch goal for us.
Okay.
The different tiers, we're going to have digital copies made available. If you don't want a 250-page book, on your coffee table, um, we're going to have merch, t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, posters or prints, buttons. And then we're actually partnering with a handful of companies too. Basically, companies that are socially minded. Um, I've approached them, and what they're going to be doing is they're going to be donating some of their merchandise to be used as backer rewards or different tier levels and sort of sweeten the pot and get people to raise more money, right? And
Yeah.
so, uh, the first one that I can announce is Goblinko, which is run by an artist, married couple of Sean Aberg and Katie Aberg, and I think I'm pronouncing their name correctly. There's an umlaut in there somewhere. But he's best known for Goblinko and role role-playing game that he created called Dungeon Degenerates.
Okay.
Sean's going to be in the art book portion, but then he's going to be donating some stuff to be used as backer rewards. We're going to have original art from these lists. We're going to have commission slots. There's going to be retailer tiers as well. And we're just going to rock and roll with a handful of really cool options on top of your traditional, you can buy two copies or you can buy you know, a UV gloss variant or something like that. So it's really exciting stuff. I just can't get into the details too much.
No, I appreciate it. It sounds like you really are cultivating this to be as immersive as you want, right?
Yes.
Any type of collector can have it. If you want the big bookshelf like me, you can back a hard copy of it. But if you're like, I just want to read it and support, do digital. And this is again, this is raising money, right, for different
Yes.
organizations.
Yeah. So, based on the Kickstarter terms, I can't say that it's a complete fundraiser, but basically you can do the math. None of the creators are taking money.
Okay.
And we're just looking to cover our costs and everything else. There's two don charitable organizations that we're looking towards. There's Churla on the immigrant side and Lambda Legal on the gay and trans side. And we're going to be doing equal big donations since we're not taking any money from it. So it's all going to charity.
That's so cool. What I love is, you know, it seems like you were inspired of, everything that's going on in the world. And, you're like, oh, I feel miserable right now with everything that's happening. And your wife's like, well, go do something about it. You're like, okay, I'm going.
Mhm.
And here you are with, this anthology. So, if you're
Yeah.
listening and, or watching this and, this is something that is near and dear to your heart, you know, when this is live, click the link in the description of this video, or if you're listening on the podcast, click the link in there to go to the Kickstarter Notify Me page. So that way, when it launches, you'll get emailed, you'll get to know all about the stuff that's happening, and you can kind of see some preview stuff up there too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as time goes on before we release, there's going to be updates that are announcing new artists that are going to be in the book. And, we do have, I can't say it yet because it hasn't been approved, but there is a musical tie-in also. And we got a really cool artist that's my favorite musical artist I've ever seen on stage to license a song for us. So that's going to be in the Kickstarter promo videos and stuff, and we're going to be doing press about that too.
That's so cool. So if there's a lot and still in the works here, and so
Yes.
where can people follow along with with the project besides the Kickstarter, with you maybe to stay up to date with all these
Right.
drops that are coming before the Kickstarter actually officially launches?
That's a good question. So most of the updates are coming via my Instagram and the comic company's Instagram. So they can follow me at j.m.brandt on Instagram or at Slow Feet Comics on Instagram. And that's going to be, my personal one is mixed up, updates, but all kinds of other stuff. Slow Feet Comics is devoted to the project and then all the creators that are on the project. So
Mhm.
that's a good way of like finding out what's up with them too. I am on Bluesky. I'm not remembering my name just yet. I think
I'll
it's
have the links in the description, so it's
yeah,
fine.
thank
So
you.
if you
Thanks.
want to
And
know wherever you're getting it, just check the descriptions of the video,
right.
and you'll find all the links that you
Yeah,
need for social.
thank you. And yeah, I have a Substack also. I am updating people on that. They're getting previews well before anybody else. And same with anybody following the pre-launch page. There are updates there, and you're getting that information and preview images that you're not going to see anywhere else.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
JM, I hesitate to ask, is there anything else or like that you're focusing on right now, or is this all horror, not hate, like full on?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely taken up like a big chunk of my life. But I am in the process of writing an ongoing series for Dead Sky Publishing. I actually don't know that I was supposed to say their name, but it's a vampire book. I can't deliver the details just yet,
Okay.
but basically we're getting an artist right now over the next couple weeks and setting a release window, but it's going to be released as two trades for the first arc. We're skipping floppies on it, so it'll be in bookstores and available on their site. And if you like the things that I like, it's a horror, but it's mostly an action slice of life comedy series.
Okay.
And it's going to be very sexy for men and women and everybody in between. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then I actually just did a handshake deal with the guy who is doing the art for my comic in Horror Not Hate. Uh, I don't even want to try pronouncing his name. It's Juicy Pyronen. He's Nordic,
Nice.
and we're going to be doing a Giallo mini series that will be most likely Kickstarter.
Okay.
It will probably be the second Slow Feet Comics project ever, and that one is about the mob and a porn set in the early 80s at a summer camp in upstate New York, and people start dying. So that's going to be really cool.
That's fantastic. Well, JM, thank you so much just for taking some time to talk about comics, talk about your work. And with that being said, hopefully people go out, support this, click the link, get notified for when details drop, and hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd
Yeah,
out.
that would be nice.
Peace.
Thank